Here is another challenge. Find out all the substrings of a string starting with a character. So what do we have to do here? Assume that there is a string like I love Python. What is a substring? A substring is, let's say, Python is a substring. Love is a substring. I is a substring. OVE out of love is also a substring. VE is a substring. E is a substring. I is a substring. Anything that's part of that string is a substring. We can figure out all the substrings, not a problem, but that's not what is asked. We have to figure out all the substrings that start with a particular character. Say we are given that particular character as a parameter. So in this string, we are supposed to figure out what are all the substrings starting with O. Now there are so many, and only this one here starts with an O, right? So that there are others also, but among the ones that we have written here, right, these ones, only one starts with an O. So what this program asks you to do is to figure out all the substrings starting with a particular letter. How do we go about doing this? Well, first of all, how do we extract all the substrings? Right? In fact, we don't need to extract all the substrings. We'll take a shortcut. But the question starts with, how do you extract a substring? Let's actually take a simpler sentence, and then we'll be able to figure all the substrings out easily. So let's take the string love, L-O-V-E. Now we want all the substrings, right? So let's start with the first letter, L, that's a substring. L-O is a substring. L-O-V is a substring, right? These are all the substrings starting with the letter L, the first letter. Then let's take the second letter, O, O-V-E, or O-V, and then O-V-E, right? Let's take the third letter, V, V. Let's take the final letter, E. Now these are the only possible substrings in this string, right? So as you can see, just for 4 letters, we have got how many combinations? 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's 8, 9, 10. 10 substrings. So imagine how many substrings are there if you have like 10, 15, 20 characters. The count is just going to explode. It's asking you for specific substrings starting with a particular letter. In this case, for example, all the substrings starting with O, easy, these are the ones. All the substrings starting with V, sure, these are the ones. But how do you effectively extract all of them in Python? That's the challenge. Okay, first of all, let's figure out the logic of trying to extract all the substrings from a string, right? And then we'll narrow down that logic to specific subletters only. We split that string into a list because it's easy to iterate. For char in, so we are iterating through each of the characters. Now, it's not just enough that you get the character, you have to get the index also. Why? Because, so if we are here, we want to iterate till the end, right? So unless we know the specific character index that we are at, we won't be able to find out all the substrings. So instead of just saying char and then list of string, we say index, comma char in enumerate of list of string. We are basically enumerating over a list as opposed to just finding out all the characters in the string. Now we got both the index and the actual character as well. Okay, say we are at this position, right? This position. What happens now? If char equals the particular character that we are looking at, the starting letter, right? So this is the starting letter. If it is, then start doing further processing like extraction of substrings. If it is not, then just ignore it, give it a pass. Okay, let's assume that it is the case. Now what? Now we have to find out the current index that we are at. For example, let's say this is our, so say this is our string and we are at this index, right? The first or 0th index. And we have to figure out all the words like L, LO, LOV, LOVE, so on and so forth, right? How do you do that? You start looping over this text beginning with this character and ending at the very end, right? So how do you do that? For I or some kind of an index in range. So we use the range function and we say we begin with this index, the current index that we are at. If we are at 0, we are at 0. If we are at 2, we are at 2. That's where we start, right? We only do this from that point to the end. We don't look backwards, right? Index, comma, length of string plus 1, right? But don't worry about that. Now we got an iteration from beginning to the end. Now what do? We want to extract all the substrings, right? So let's keep a list here. List of words, list of substrings. So list underscore substrings, where we keep accumulating all the substrings, dot append. So this is basically an empty list to start with. Now we start appending what? String of, this is where string slicing comes into play. String of what is the beginning and what is the end. What is the starting point? Index. What is the ending point? The ending point is I. Now if this is confusing, let me walk through it. So again we have LOVE, right? So LOVE. Say we are here, okay? We are at 0th position. So the way this loop works is, if we are looking for all the substrings starting with L, here is our list. We want to keep adding, right? What do we append? We append string of index of I. What is the string? LOVE. Index colon I. So in this case, the index and I will be same, right? Because the range starts at 0 and then ends at 1, 2, 3, right? 3. So the index is always constant for this for loop. So it's always going to start at 0 and then the initial value is going to be 0. So 0 colon 0 is 0. So the first letter is L. The second letter, the index is going to move from 0 to 1, right? So 0 colon 1, that is LO. 0 and 1. Next 0 colon 2, LOV, and then LOVE, right? So this is done. So this for loop is done. We exit out of this. And then we go up and then again enumerate. If the character is the one that we need to start looking for. So we are looking for L, right? So is there another L here? No, right? So this for loop will not find another L in this word. That means that these are the only substrings starting with L. What if we were given a E? So this one gets skipped over, this one gets skipped over, this one gets skipped over, and we are here. Let's see how this for loop works. What is the index? The index is 0, 1, 2, 3. So the index is 3. What is the length? The length is 3. So for I in range of 3, 3. 3 comma 3 is just 1, right? So from 3 to 3, there is only one iteration that is possible. So this will become string of 3 colon 3. What is 3 colon 3? 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 to 3, that's what this means. From 3, third index to the third index. So all it's going to give you is the substring E. Right? So this is how we can work this out. So the second part of the range is going to be a problem. It requires some minor correction that we are going to do when we start writing the program. So let's write this program. So we want to find out all the substrings in this string starting with this character, right? Now what did we want it to do first? So we just want to loop through all the elements, and if that character is equal to the starting letter, then we start doing all the processing. If not, we just pass. How do we write this? We just enumerate over the string. Let's make this a little more descriptive. Now for index comma char, we want to iterate over the string. We don't need to convert this to a list again, because enumerate I think will work for strings also. Let's actually try this. Okay, it works. It's iterating through the elements. Now we have got to only start to look at substrings if that character is a starting character. Only then, right? Otherwise we just speed through the loop. So if it is, then what do we do? We go through this logic for I in range of this index, right? And before we do that, we have to create that empty list. And here we start appending all the substrings to that list. How do we append? We append starting with the index character and ending at I. Right? Remember? Starts at the index and ends at the length. And finally, after these loops are over, return this list of substrings. Let's try to run this. Okay, it says a blank, which is not correct, and then it says LOV, L, LO, LOV. Now if you look at this example that we have seen, it should also have LOVE, right? What about the last character? Why did we fail? That's because the range function excludes the last number, meaning if we are starting from range of 1 comma 3, it means that it only goes from 1 to 2. It excludes the third number, right? So we have to say length of string plus 1. Let's try that. Length of string plus 1. In this case, the length of the string LOV is 4. So we've got all the substrings L, LO, LOV, LOVE. What about this blank character? Why are we getting it? We are getting it because the initial index is 0 and I, for the first time this loop runs, is also 0. So 0 colon 0. So let's actually test this. What does the strings 0 colon 0 return? It returns a blank. So that's the way string slicing works. So you just have to accommodate for this by trying to say if I is equal to 0, meaning the end number in a string slicing is 0, then ignore it, right? So we could do a correction like this, right? So in this case, the correction works. So this is just a small kink, don't worry about this. It's just a very small correction, but as long as you are able to get the overall logic correctly, which is enumerating over a string and then checking if that character is a starting character, and then again doing another loop inside a loop where you try to slice that string into its substrings based on the string slicing logic. Right? Let's try a different character. What about O? O, OVE, OVE. Okay, see this correction that we have done does not work. So the correction that we have to make here is, if I not equal to index, does it work? Let's see. Yes, it works for O, it works for L, works for V, works for E. Now this is one way of correcting it. We could even correct it right at this point, right? But so I leave that to you as an exercise. All right, so that is how you can extract substrings.